Chris, I might start with Jeremy. Sorry, a little bit out there today, but how much of a role did you have in the decision to give him just one more week to get his head right?
None. No, it was just purely a medical call. He just had a little bit of a... he had a couple of slow days after recovering pretty well in the early stages from his concussion. So I got an indication earlier in the week that he probably wouldn't make it. So once I heard that, we just moved on pretty quickly.
I was reading an independent article in the AD, I think, just talking about some of the severity of it and his reaction to it. And it was interesting. I think he sort of was talking about, he thought he was in a car crash and some of the comments he made. And he spoke about the severity of it. For a guy like him, he seems really laid back from an external point of view, but is it one of those real eye-opening ones as just to how dangerous and how serious, some of these things can be?
I think they all tend to be a bit that way. And in some ways, the other injuries are even more sort of eye-opening. These can be a bit... The ones involving the head where there's some confusion is obviously really concerning, but I think just off the top of my head, Gary Rowan breaking his leg so badly all those years ago, Jeremy Howe, round one this year, and even the fact that this one was friendly fire just goes to show how courageous the players are, even without any bad intent from the opposition. Obviously, there was clearly no bad intent in Jeremy's situation, so... I continue to marvel at how far the game has come in terms of the athleticism and the speed and the consistency across all players. There's if there's one player out there in a game where you think he's taken a short step, you'd be very surprised these days. They're all just really committed to what they do, and we do play an inherently dangerous sport. And that's part of the appeal in some respects, which is why on the other side of the coin, we need to do as much as we can to help the legislators make it as safe as possible.
So will he have to do much more from a training point of view to be available for next week, or are the docs pretty confident to be all right?
Yeah, look, I'm honestly not exactly sure, and I try not to get too involved. What I do know is he's done quite a bit of training this week. So in terms of the physical prep that we need from a football perspective, he's in good shape, and we're told he's likely. But there's always the caveat that if there's a setback, things can change. And I think we're seeing that a lot across the competition with a whole range of injuries. And that's why we're always a little coy when it comes to anything that's more than a few weeks, because the honest answer is we just don't know. And we could try to give you some certainty, but we'd more than likely misguide you.
The injuries for Kolajasny and Buse, Chris, are they longer term? Do you know where they sit right now?
Yeah, they're different. So Kolajasny will just be the week. We're really confident of that. That's just a hip issue that we're confident he can bounce back from quickly. Buse is more likely to be a couple, but hopefully not much longer than that. But unlikely he'll play next week.
Knee related?
Yeah, it's his knee. Yeah.
It just seemed that he just didn't have that explosiveness and power over the last few weeks. Is it something that sort of just got to a point where it just couldn't be played with anymore?
Yeah, that's right. He has been hampered by it, and yeah, the reason I wouldn't normally say that, because I wouldn't generally be confident in the plan, but this is one where there is a bit more of a regimented plan that's going to take at least a couple of weeks, so likely to miss the next two to get that completely right, because there was just no point from his perspective and from ours that he keep plugging away without being able to do what he can do when he's at his best.
It opens the door for a selection point of view to get a couple of guys in. That squad depth is strong at the moment, and how promising at this point of the year is it to keep that competition for spots for you, I guess? Yeah, we're still getting there. We tend not to think of it in terms of competition for spots. I completely understand the logic in that philosophy, but for us it's more about getting all our players going as well as they possibly can, and sometimes that's AFL exposure, but I think Oisin Mullen in particular is an example of a player who has played well enough at VFL level for us to put some or enough weight on those performances for him to force his way into the team. But yeah, it feels like we're getting them back, which is it's a good sign. We've just got to get everyone firing at once now.
last week about the management of players, and you hinted that that's something you're looking at. Is that on the radar for Isaac this week?
Yeah, and it has been for a lot of the year with a few of our guys. We just haven't had the availability to do that, and we're starting to head towards that direction now. But we try to be as transparent as possible when it comes to our philosophy on this, and that is that we don't really think too much in terms of where we are on the ladder or who we're playing. It's more around how's that individual going and how does it fit into the macro plan that we came up at the start of the year. And it's really, it's probably taken us a bit longer than we would have liked to give Isaac a chop out.
Big celebration tomorrow with Zach Tui. Can you just talk me through your relationship with him? I guess, you know, the first time that you sort of wanted to get into the club and how momentous this is for someone to, pass what is a legendary sort of accolade with Jim Steins.
Yeah, it is momentous. One, because Jim Stein's such a legend of our game, but 265 games for any AFL player is a remarkable achievement. But to come out from Ireland is just an amazing achievement. I think of it often, and we have had some good success with the Irish players on our list, but I think about it in terms of how I would have handled it as a 17-year-old growing up in Australia if the top level was in Ireland, whether I would have been able to go and do the same thing. And it's a resounding no. I'm full of respect for the players that come out and have a go. But to come out and have the influence that he's had has been remarkable. And I've just always been impressed with... I always liked Zach as a player when he was at Carlton. But he was so respectful and thankful to us for giving him the opportunity. And now, again, I think about it more in terms of the reverse. I think about it in terms of the value he's given our club. It's just, there were a lot of great stories out of last year, but I was just so pleased for him, to achieve, that team success. And it shouldn't be forgotten when we look back on his career, how much of an influence he had over the Geelong Footy Club. He's been such a good value player for such a long time. And I even said to the players briefly today that we have evolved over the last 7 or 8 years. I'm not exactly sure when Zach came, 2015-ish, I'm going to say. And he's been a big part of that shift. We've kind of moved with him. So I think he will consistently say how thankful he is to be at the Geelong Footy Club, but this is an occasion where we can actually turn that around and show our appreciation for what he's done.
Will he be given a licence to launch any talks from fullback and then also swing forward at some stage, Chris?
Yeah, he's always got that. He knows that. The crowd should get behind him. We're sort of telegraphing it a little bit now, aren't we, to the opposition when he gets back there and the crowd goes nuts. But he jokes about it, and it's hard to describe all the things that go on within the confines of a football club. But he just has a beautiful way of keeping things lighthearted, and then balancing it with his professionalism and aggression on the field. When I'm having a little bit of a tough moment in a team meeting, he's always good for a gag that lightens the mood a little bit. I'm very appreciative of that. Because it's not my strength. I know you wouldn't believe that, but it's not.
You get O'Connor, Mull and Tui playing together. Was it by design or just fallen nicely that way? That, Mark obviously back and O'Sheen in the form that you want him to be in to play.
Yeah, I honestly hadn't thought about that, but now you mention it, there's some nice symmetry to that. I mean, Mark O'Connor was always coming back. It was just a sort of 1 week adductor, that one. O'Sheen, we were disappointed that we couldn't keep going with him for a little bit longer, and he did have just this little setback with his body, but has shown, that he's well and truly over that and is in really sort of good athletic form as well as football form in the VFL. So to have them all together, I think, is a nice little moment, but certainly not by design. No, we don't work that way.
What are you hoping to see these next few weeks? We know how tight things are getting. It's getting towards that pointy end. What's the focus for you right now in terms of a bit of that messaging to your guys?
Oh, we're just chasing our best footy, and with the quiet confidence that our best footy will give it a shake. And when I say give it a shake, I just mean give it a shake every single week. Like not sort of think too far forward. Have the confidence that if we get the next bit right, that the result will kind of look after itself. And it is, to an extent, the coaching staff's job to look forward a little bit and think about all the permutations and plan accordingly. But for the players, we just want to find our best footy. We feel like there are a few reasons beyond our control why we haven't been able to find it this year, but there's most of it, we can change and change really quickly. So, we're optimistic but also, honest that less than our best is not going to be good enough. So find it and find it quickly.
How close do you feel you are to that best?
I don't know, but I feel like it's achievable. So look, we were disappointed with the way we played last week. If most recent history is relevant, we're keen to improve on that. But we also know that if you play well one week, it doesn't guarantee anything the next. So it's just a matter of sort of finding that, having confidence that our game, played at its best, is going to be good enough. And we still have that belief. I'm really confident of that.
What makes North Melbourne dangerous? Chris, I know they've lost 14 in a row, but they've got some elite young talent, but probably playing with a bit of freedom and nothing to lose.
Yeah, I've never been a huge believer in the idea of nothing to lose, but I wasn't even across the 14 games because it doesn't. When I watch them, that's not the team that I see. So even last week, it looked to me against a good Adelaide team over there that early in the game they, more than had Adelaide's measure for parts of the game, and that's what I tend to sort of zero in on. What do they look like when they're at the best? And they've got a really talented and well-performed midfield already. I mean, the numbers around their midfield performance kind of belie their ladder position to an extent. So, and all parts of the game are connected, I understand that. But, yeah, if you zeroed in on their strengths, I think they would probably look back on what they've started to build this year and say, yeah, we've got the nucleus of a pretty strong midfield, and that as much as anything's our focus.